Oh, we forgot the mic.
Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Your seat is here. There you go. You made it in the rain and everything.
Yeah, I made it.
Good.
Anyway, I was
You came home by train?
personal.
Oh, wow.
Just keep this here
Okay.
because they can't hear it so well on the broadcast.
Oh, you have your own mic too, good. Okay.
This is the biggest problem that we have here is this mic stand.
The mic stand?
When I came to your house,
Yeah.
I saw the mic stand that you have.
Yeah.
I said, this is a mic stand.
It's the same mic stand, just that one's probably a lot older than mine.
No, it's not the same. Yours is a professional.
Yeah.
Yours is a professional mic stand where you can just move it and everything.
Yeah.
But this, you're supposed to be undoing this. Nobody ever does it. It gets stripped.
Oh,
This is even just, it's all broken.
yeah.
So, have to find out
I need a new one.
where you got your mic stand.
Guitar Center.
What is it?
Guitar Center
Oh, at the shop
Guitar
or
Center.
online?
at the shop.
Uh-huh. See? Doesn't stay. We got tape here. It's been jerry-rigged.
Don't mess with it. Leave it alone.
Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Itadale Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jutaha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahabhadanaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Trishe Namaha Nityanandam Namastubhyam Premananda Pradayane Kalo Kalamashanashaya Janavapataye Namaha Ajanulambita Bujo Kanakavadato Samkirtanaika Pitaro Kamalaya Taksho Vishvambaro Dvijavaro Yugadharma Palo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karanavataro Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shabdikam. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jayatam Shuruto Pangor Mama Mandamater Gati Matsarvasva Padam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpadrumadha Srimad Ratnagara Simhasanasto Srimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Preshtalibhi Sevyamano Smarami Sriman Rasarasarambhi Vam Shivata Tatakstitaha Karshan Venu Swanair Gopir Gopinata Shriyeshtunaha Brindai Tulsi Debai Priyai Keshavasyacha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha Bhaktya Vihina Aparadha Lakshai Kshiptascha Kamari Taranga Madhye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prabhanna Brinde Numaste Charanara Vindam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. First of all, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta, Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa, Ashto Tarashata, Sri Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta, Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, who brought the Bhagavad Gita to the whole world. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Then I'm offering my same unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs, Nitya Lila Pravishta, Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa, Ashtatarashata Sri Srila A. Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj. Thanks to Nitya Lila Pravishta, Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa, Ashto Tarashata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. I offer my Dandavat Pranams to the lotus feet of all of my Rupanuga Guru Varga and my Siksha Guru Varga. And I offer my Dandavat Pranams to all the Vaishnavas and to all the Vaishnavas. So yesterday I mentioned at the end of our class, because for the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've been reading a very high Shastra, and it's been a very wonderful experience. Vilapa Kushumanjali, Raghunath Das Goswami. Mostly like senior devotees here, but still, even for the younger ones, very, very sweet. Very nectar. So I intend after these next 3 days to resume that. And but now, tomorrow is the big day. You know what tomorrow is? Yeah, Ekadashi, that's true. What else?
Birbab Mahamotsava. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki
Jai. Gita Jayanti. How important is that day for the whole universe? Huh? The Bhagavad Gita, the Song of God, directly spoken by Bhagavan. Who is Bhagavan? He's the one who has 6 opulences in full. So, I wanted to mention that, I have my own experience. I just wanted to tell that. And I'm sure that each one of us have our own experience. Of how the Bhagavad Gita came into our life and how the Bhagavad Gita affected us. So we have a few of our senior devotees here, and we have these memories that when we became new devotees in Krishna consciousness, some of us at the age of 18, some of us at the age of 20, 22, whatever it may have been, but we were all very young, right, Yalaji? Well, how old were you?
Around 22, 23.
Yeah, you were in the older group.
24.
Yeah. 24, yeah.
But I was 18 when I first came to town.
Right.
I joined when I was 24.
Yeah.
All young.
Yeah.
How about this fellow here?
22. See, we're all young and inexperienced in this world, material world. We've grown a lot more gray hairs from our wisdom over the years that we've experienced. But in my case, I've mentioned this before, but I was born into a family that was pretty devout in Christianity. My grandparents had come from Europe and from Germany, from Russia. And we had like a religious family that were all sent to a religious grade school. So from the age of 5, kindergarten, I was hearing biblical stories and teachings every single day, memorizing, singing hymns, saying different prayers and so forth. And then on Sunday, going to church like this. So it was a pretty strict Christian upbringing, but outside of the school and outside of the church, it was pretty much the same life that anybody else was leading. So nevertheless, we were being taught in the grade school, especially our last 2 years, the teacher or the pastor of the church who used to give the Sunday lecture, he gave us a special class that was the Christian Siddhanta class, supposedly something more deep that will make you very firm in your belief, right? So that after you leave the grade school, you go to high school, and it may be a public high school, so so what they were trying to do was give this conviction to us. Prepare us, and also just prior to graduating, we got our first Holy Communion, which was another rite of passage in Christianity, where you go up and have the wafer and the sip of wine, and this is the body, this is the blood, like that. So these were all the rituals to make us firm believers, right? So for me, I had no doubt really in God. That had been instilled in me. And we had been taught from our early childhood that the Bible is the Word of God. Ever heard that one before?
Yeah.
It comes from God. It's the Word of God. And it also is written by different inspired persons, apostles and so forth, all the different books of the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament. So this is supposed to be the literal recording of God's word, his message for human beings and so forth. But as we can see now, looking back, certainly there was some level of information being given there. 10 commandments, right? You should live according to these 10 commandments of God. And if you don't, then you're a very bad sinner. So, and there were so many other precepts. But in my final year, I remember that the pastor of the church came in, and he would give us like once a week a special 1 hour long class on the Siddhanta. And at that time, one of the things that stood out was that he was describing God as having 3 different characteristics. You know what those 3 were?
Father?
No, that's different. That's 3 different identities.
Okay.
But there are 3 different characteristics. Omniscient, all-knowing, omniscient, knows everything. Then omnipotent, that means all-powerful. And omnipresent, present everywhere. So this conception was placed into our mind, our intelligence, and of course we're meant to make an attempt to understand this. You need a chair? You can bring a chair. You usually need a chair. So, but as I went through the next 4 years, it was the wild time in the 60s, from 1967 to 1970, you know. And then many different questions came into my mind at that time. It wasn't like I was doubting. I actually didn't have a doubt that God is there. But I was trying to understand, how can I understand that you're there? How can I have some contact with you, some connection? And of course, Jesus Christ being the Son of God, and I had studied that all through the years as well. But yet, I didn't feel that there was some genuine, deep realization of God. And I remember one time, just after graduating in my high school years, 1970, that I was with a friend and we were lying on the grass like 10 o'clock at night in a park, looking up at the stars. And I was thinking, if you're there, somehow or other, give me a sign so I can understand for sure. So
that's when you saw the shooting star.
yeah, the omen. So just around that time is when the Mahamantra came to me through a friend. He had visited Toronto, Canada, had gotten a mantra card, and it said on the card, and of course we went through the 60s, which had a lot of transcendental this and transcendental that, right? Transcendental meditation and so forth. Get high forever. Raise your consciousness, everything. So when I got that mantra card and I read it had like an introduction to the Sunday feast on one side, Sri Radha Krishna temple. Then on the other side it said, please chant this transcendental sound vibration. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And your life will be sublime. And when I saw that, I thought, oh, this is what the Beatles sang in their song, the words Hare Krishna. And the Beatles had gone to Maharishi, and they had gone to India, and now transcendental meditation, it was seeping into the culture and the society. And I was very interested in that. I had also gotten a book on yoga, started practicing Hatha Yoga, right? And at the end of the book, it tells you about pranayam, but it doesn't go much further. It tells you that if you practice pranayam along with Hatha Yoga, then gradually it raises your consciousness. That was like the conclusion of the book. So anyway, I told my friend, let's chant this, transcendental sound vibration. And then he said, no, I'm not going to do that. I said, well, why not? It says right here that if you do it, your life will become sublime. So don't you think we should at least experiment and we should at least try this out? And then he said, no, I'm not going to do it. You do it. Then you tell me what happens. So I used to play guitar and I used to sit and play different chords and stuff. So I started to sing this Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, right? And then after a couple of weeks, I'd come back from school, sit in my room and just play and chant. Then I started to think, oh, I have to find someone who knows about this, who can tell me more about this and how to chant it and all of those things. So lo and behold, the Paramatma in the heart knows everything. And I went to a rock festival, a music festival, and then just prior to the music starting out, there was this scene with thousands of young people, and I was sitting on a blanket with 2-3 different friends, and I'm looking here and there, everybody's waiting for the music to begin, and suddenly in the distance I see this person with a shaved head. Nobody had shaved heads then. Anyway, and he had robes on, saffron-colored robes, and I became spellbound. Who is that? What is it? Who is he? Somehow or other it struck me that this must be connected with the Hare Krishna, because yoga, India, this and that. So I was a little young, and I was a little shy to go up to that person. But what happened was Krishna brought that person weaving through the crowds. He had some magazines and some incense packs, and he was talking with people who were sitting on the blankets. And when he came up to me, there he was, looking at me directly. Then I said, what is this? Who are you? What are you doing? He says, oh, we're practicing bhakti yoga. I said, oh, yoga. Yeah, I also do that. Have you experienced this higher consciousness? Because he's dressed as so he must be some very well-informed person who's been practicing. Then I said, so, have you experienced this? He says, oh, yes, I have. He says, let me tell you, I've been chanting this Hare Krishna mantra for only 2 months now. And before that, I was addicted to heroin. And I've completely given that up. I have no cravings. And he was bright-faced, red-cheeked. Some of you may know him. Lokavarnitam and forgetting right now, Muktakesh. They were identical twins from Buffalo, New York. They were childhood friends of Bhagavan. And so when he told me that, I was just completely amazed. And he mentioned that I'd been chanting Hare Krishna. Then he handed me the magazine, which had a picture of Radha and Krishna on the cover from the Nectar of Devotion cover, that beautiful picture of Radha and Krishna on the swing, and also Reservoir of Pleasure, Krishna, the Reservoir of Pleasure. And when I looked at the covers, I became completely amazed. And I said, God, this is such beautiful art, beautiful picture. I think it might be the most beautiful picture I've ever seen. Then he said to me, yes, and that's how your heart is. I said, what? So anyway, I'm just telling this because that impression was very deep for me at that moment, right? And within the course of the next couple of months, I met the devotees a few more times, and then I was out on the East Coast in Connecticut. And at that point, I was desperate to meet the devotees. And finally the devotees came. They actually appeared like after a few days that I was already there. And then I spent a little bit of time with them, and I attended my first kirtan in the evening program. And there was a whole bunch of people. They put up a parachute to be like a tent. And in that kirtan, I wanted to experience something. And I was like praying that some experience will come. And at first, they did a kirtan, and then there was a short lecture, and then they did a second kirtan. And in the first kirtan, I was thinking, I have to completely focus my mind. But I couldn't control. My mind was still thinking this and going there. And then after this little short lecture, then I made up my mind, now it's now or never. And in that kirtan, Krishna allowed me to experience some kind of illumination. And then then I understood, okay, this is real. There's more details to this whole story, but I went up to a devotee, which happened to be Sri Govinda, and I said, you know, I'm very serious. I want to know more about this. And because I didn't even know that they have a movement. I've seen them here and there, and I didn't know practically anything about what this is. So, but I was very attracted, and whatever it was that they told, I could grasp onto that. So then I said, I'd like to, speak with you. He says, okay, come tomorrow morning. And I came just after the sunrise, and we sat together for 1 hour. And then he began to tell me the Bhagavad Gita. That's the first time. He was basically telling me the main points about the Bhagavad Gita, about this philosophy. That first of all, you're not your body. Your consciousness. I had never heard that before. I had never heard that you are not this physical body. You are the consciousness in the body. And as he was explaining it to me, that, even all the different living species, from the plants and insects and birds and animals, they're also exactly like you. An eternal spark of consciousness that is indestructible. Consciousness never changes and is indestructible and eternal. And that just hit me so, it was so obvious to me. I thought to myself, why didn't I ever think of that before? Of course, I'm not this body. So in this way, one point after another, karma. I never heard of karma. I heard the word karma, but I never heard any explanation that we are eternal entities that are wandering in this material universe, going through millions and millions of species of life, and we come to a human form of life, and in the human form of life, we perform actions. Those actions have reactions. Like in Christianity, it says, as ye sow, ye shall reap. But it has no conception of karma from one life to another. Nothing. And as soon as I heard this, that you have more than one life, in fact, you can have millions and millions of lives, and you have all this accumulated karma. And that's why you're enjoying and suffering. Sometimes enjoying, sometimes suffering. Because of your karma. Some good actions, some bad actions, like this. Then he began to explain about the supreme conscious being, Krishna. And that's the first time I was really hearing an explanation that God, the Supreme Creator, He has a spiritual form. In the Bible, there's no description of the form of God. It even says, no man has seen God. When I began to hear how God Himself descended, and our form of a human being is fashioned after His form. He has a human-like form, but His body is not material. His body is completely transcendental. That's when He first explained Sat Chit Ananda, eternal, Chit, full of consciousness and knowledge, Ananda, ecstasy, made of ecstasy and bliss. And not only that, He has all opulences. Then He began to explain the 6 opulences: all wealth, all power, all knowledge, all beauty, and how that supreme entity can do anything and everything. Everything has emanated from Him. So He's explaining that Krishna Himself descended into this world 5,000 years ago. And there are very great scriptures that tell everything about His life in the ancient Sanskrit language. And chief of those is what He Himself personally spoke. And it's called the Bhagavad Gita, the Song of Bhagavan, the Song of God. In the Bible, like I said, they say this is the Word of God. But this is the only record that you will find in any religion, any culture, that supreme being, the source of everything that exists, came down on this planet and lived for 125 years on this planet. He never grew old. He was always beautiful and youthful. He performed many superhuman, powerful activities. And there was a great war that took place. And on that battlefield, before the war began, He was sitting on a chariot with His friend named Arjuna. And Arjuna was in a dilemma. And Krishna spoke to him this knowledge called the Song of God, in which He answered every single question, and He put forward the perfect understanding that any human being needs to hear and needs to understand in order to gain their eternal spiritual life, full of bliss and full of knowledge. That is the Bhagavad Gita. So they had a little unabridged Bhagavad Gita that they were selling, that first one, the purple one, you know. And I didn't have any money. So I went around at this festival, and practically nobody else had any money. And I just said, hey, you got a dime? Or you got a nickel? I got together $1 and then another $1. And I came to the devotees that day. And I said, here. Because they told me, just get something. Go and try to get some money. So I came back, and they gave me the Bhagavad Gita for $1, and then they gave me my beads. From the bead shops, remember? Round beads.
The neem beads.
No, not neem. From bead shops, the hippie bead shops at that time. They had beads that you could string yourself, right?
Glass beads.
Huh?
Like glass beads.
No, not glass, wood beads, brown colored. And then they had the string there and everything. I said, okay, this is how you string the beads. And I sat there and strung my 108 beads. And that became my japa mala for the next 1 year until I got initiated by Prabhupada. And then I got my Tulsi beads at that time. So when I began to completely absorb myself in this, they were leaving that very day. And they said, hey, you can come back with us. We're from Detroit. We'll give you a ride there. You can come to our temple. And I said, I can't really do that because I hitchhiked here with my friend. And he's not into this Hare Krishna. So I have to go back with him first. And I have to, go go back to my hometown, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and then after that, then I'll come to Detroit, and I'll come to the temple. So I said farewell to the devotees, and there's one devotee named Nartamananda. Anyone know him? Nartamananda. He ran, after I started walking away, he ran up to me and he said, hey, wait 1 minute. I just want to tell you one thing. He said, now that you've decided to become a devotee, so Krishna's material energy, the illusory potency called Maya, she is going to try in every single way to dissuade you. There's going to be so many different tests that will come. I want you to do one thing right now, right here in front of me. I want you to promise to yourself that no matter what happens to you on your way back, you will come to the temple. I said, okay, I promise. So, took a few...
Did that make a difference for you, that promise? Or,
well, it did, but I was very ready.
You were going to go anyway.
Oh, yeah.
But it made you aware that Maya might...
Absolutely, yeah. So many things,
that's
so many possible,
Did you have some obstacles?
Not really. But along the way, I was chanting practically non-stop on my beads.
Yeah.
And my friend was sitting there, what's he doing? And then whenever we would get a ride in a car, then I would be immediately talking to the driver and telling him about Krishna. And you know what happened? At the end of this journey, just before Milwaukee, we came to Chicago, right? And Chicago is just, you know where that is. You're from there.
Yeah.
So that was the last leg. And we got a ride with some teenage boys. It was like 5 o'clock in the evening. And we were going down the freeway. And he noticed that I had the Bhagavad Gita. And he said, oh, you read the Gita? He had somehow or other come in contact with the Bhagavad Gita. And I said, well, yeah, I've been reading it. He said, what do you understand from that? And then I began to tell him what I understood. He says, wow, you really know this stuff. Hey, listen, we're near to my parents' house. My parents are gone on vacation and I'm having a party there tonight with a bunch of friends. And like you guys, you could come and have something to eat and then we'll bring you back to the freeway and you can hitchhike back up to Milwaukee. But like I have my friends there and you can tell them what you just told me. So then we came to their house. It was kind of like a mini mansion kind of house in a suburban area, maybe the north of Chicago. And when I came in, they were playing music and they turned off. Said, hey, you guys, come over here. We picked up these two guys on the freeway, and this one guy, he has a really cool rap. You got to hear it. So he sat me down, and the people sat there, and he said, okay, so tell them what you were telling me. And that's when I gave my first little talk about Krishna.
Your first Guitar class.
And then they listened for like 10 minutes or something, and then, oh, cool. And then they just went on with what they were doing.
Turn on the music again.
Yeah. So we hitchhiked, we got up to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and then my friend called his sister. He was really happy that he could get away from me. Then they dropped me off at my house, my parents' house, and I hadn't called my parents for a few weeks. We'd been hitchhiking, and my father was really upset. I was just about to turn 18 years. And then, he was very upset, and my mother wasn't there. She had gone on vacation. So anyway, I came in and went up to my room, and next to my bed was those two magazines, the Krishna, the Reservoir of Pleasure, and Back to God, and I began to read it until I fell asleep. Next morning, I got up and went downstairs, and my sister was there. I had two sisters. One sister was there, and I said, I'm leaving home today, and I'm going to Detroit. She said, what are you going there for? I'm going to the Hare Krishna temple. I'm going to join the Hare Krishna temple movement. So what's that? So I said, I'll tell you a little bit, but I'll write a letter, tell mom and dad, not to worry. And so, because I was about to turn 18 years of age, and I knew that if I would have told my father, he would never have let me leave home. So I was, like in 10 days, I was about to turn 18, so I decided, okay, packed my bags, called the airport, called my friend and said, I need some money, and I'm going to fly. I never flew before. And then he came over and I said, I'll sell you my whole record album collection for $80. I need $80. So he gave me the money. And then took the taxi to the airport, bought the ticket, and I'm sitting there chanting on my beads, waiting for the flight. It's like only a 45-minute flight or something from Milwaukee across the lake, you know.
Yeah.
And the person next to me said, what are you doing? And I began to tell them. Then on the airplane, I'm sitting there chanting. And this person next to me asks me what I'm doing. I told them. Then we landed in Detroit, and then got a taxi and showed him the address. Yeah, I know that. Oh yeah, those people who sing in front of the such and such. You're going there. What's that all about anyway? So as he drove me to the temple, I'm telling him. Came up to the temple probably about 5 o'clock. It was about 5 o'clock in the evening, August 3rd, 1970. And I rang the doorbell, and a little black-bodied local kid came to the door, and he said, oh, you come to stay for a while? Because I had my guitar and my suitcase. And I said, yeah, I've come to stay for good. He went, Haribo! And then he ran into the temple. We got a new devotee. And then Abhiram came forward. He's very well-known Prabhupada disciple. And he was sitting in for Bhagavad, who had gone to Los Angeles to meet Prabhupada before Prabhupada left the country to go to India. And the GBC was established right during that time. And then they welcomed me in. How did you find our temple? This, that. Oh, I met the devotees. And then a few minutes later, the devotees group of about 30 devotees who were coming back in the big maxi van, they came in and they, had been chanting the whole afternoon on the streets. And in the summertime, they came in and they made a big, huge container full of fresh squeezed lemonade with gulab jamun juice from the Sunday feast as the sweetener. And they're all drinking, and they're all happy, and they're all joyful. And, then they invited me, and then, okay, we're preparing for the evening arti. Now we're going to come into the shower room. So we went and stood in line to take a cold shower. And then after that, they brought me into the little curtained off brahmachari ashram area, and they put me into kopins, a dhoti.
Dhoti or yoga pants?
No, a dhoti.
Actual dhoti.
Yeah, they put me into a dhoti, wow. And then with a sash, we called it a sash, the uttariya, and my t-shirt, and then they put tilak on me, and they brought me to the temple room, and it was the middle of Artik. Everybody was like jumping up and down and dancing, and so you have to bow down and touch the floor with your head. So I did that when I entered in, and then I looked up, and there was just like our Jagannath here on the altar. And then the devotees were all jumping up and down, chanting the Maha Mantra. And that's the first time I was in a kirtan, jumping up and down with the devotees and chanting. And then in the middle of that, tears came rolling down my cheeks. And I felt, I'm home. And then after that, it was just one day after another, realization after realization. Srimad Bhagavatam class, like 5 hours of chanting on the streets every day. And that was it. So the Bhagavad Gita is what brought me to Krishna. And the Bhagavad Gita is so important and indispensable for every devotee. I know in our Sangha, a lot of the devotees have not really carefully studied the Gita, because there are so many different incredible literatures and books and so forth. And even while Gurudev was with us physically, the devotees, a lot of them, they were new. They'd actually joined the movement, but they never had the chance to have daily Bhagavad Gita classes. When we joined, every single night we read a verse and a purport, and then there was some explanation. We studied the Gita year after year after year after year, you know, and Bhagavatam every morning. So this is the basis of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement. These are the two basic literatures which Srila Prabhupada gave. They're not basic, they're extremely advanced, but these are, I meant to say, foundational. This is the foundation. Without this foundation, no one can go and read the other Shastras and the other literatures, you know. So everyone has to study the Bhagavad Gita and get it under your belt, because this is directly Krishna's own words. This is not spoken by some person who heard it. This is directly Krishna himself. Of course, we're hearing it from Sanjay, who is speaking it to Dhritarashtra because of his mystic power, and then Vyasadeva, Srila Vyasadeva wrote this as 18 chapters of the Mahabharata, right? So we're getting it in that way. But there's no other literature like the Bhagavad Gita where the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the source of everything that exists, the personality who is the Paramatma in everyone's heart, the personality who is the Supreme Lord accompanying the Jiva souls through endless time. Whatever body they go into, he's also there. That's omnipresence. You know, like the Christian thing, omnipresent. How is he omnipresent? He's present. Andantarasta paramanu chayantarastam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami, who is situated within every atomic particle, who is situated in the Jivatma, in the core of his heart, that same Supreme Lord, who the Upanishads talk about as being the two birds on the branch of a tree. One bird is very busy trying to eat the fruits on that branch of the tree, but the other bird is sitting next to him and only witnessing and watching him. He's not interested to try to eat the fruits, but the other bird is very preoccupied. And that friend, the other bird, is witnessing and watching and waiting. When will my friend turn towards me and notice that I am also here? And then we can begin a relationship. So the Bhagavad Gita is that personality. Not only that personality, the source of unlimited personalities of Godhead, and who are, the Paramatma is only a part of a part of a part of a part. To know the Bhagavad Tattva Vijnanam, to gain Vijnan, realize knowledge, the Bhagavad Gita is required. How can we be devotees of Krishna, Krishna Bhaktas, right? We're Krishna Bhaktas. We believe in Krishna. But if we don't become well acquainted with what Krishna himself has taught, our relationship with Krishna is not complete without that. We have to have very strong faith in Krishna's words, and that has to be, imprinted in our consciousness. So many of these verses, these shlokas of the Bhagavad Gita, are essential for us to memorize and to be able to explain them, to be able to quote them, to be able to explain them. Why? Because if we want to preach the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the message of the Krishna consciousness movement, we have to speak from authority. It's not like, ordinary mundane religions where they just speak, I feel like this, I think this. No. This is Vedic truth, Vedic Shastra. And we are hearing it. Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita how you should hear this. He says to Arjuna, if you want to understand this knowledge, in the 4th chapter, then he says, Tat vidhi, this knowledge of the relationship between the soul and the Supreme Soul, Tat vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tatvadarshinaha. You will have to approach who? A tattva darshi. What is that? Tattva darshi. He who has seen and is seeing. Tattva, truth, reality. They're not simply seeing the illusory energy of Maya. They're seeing tattva. Everything they look at, everything they perceive is all connected with Krishna. Tattva darshi. And Gurudev would always say, you must associate with and hear from a Rasik Tattva Gya Vaishnava. Tattva Gya. That means one who knows Tattva. We're not sentimentalists. Neither are we trying to jump up to the top of the tree to get the fruits, which is, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur told. No, you cannot do in that way. It is not possible. You have to take the trouble to climb the tree and gradually attain that. So we have to learn Tattva Siddhanta. If we learn Tattva Siddhanta, then we become very strong in our faith, in our conviction. But if we don't know Tattva Siddhanta properly, we cannot properly advance. That is essential, transcendental knowledge. So the Bhagavad Gita is divided into 18 chapters. And these 18 chapters are divided into 3 different sections. The first 6 chapters, the second 6 chapters, and the third 6 chapters. This is the ultimate transcendental 666. So, there's so much beautiful explanation. I mean, Gurudev's, I've been looking at his introduction to his Bhagavad Gita, and Prabhupada's also. I mean, really, we should probably have like 2-3 weeks of studying just these introductions. They're so amazing how Gurudev is explaining everything. So the first section of the Gita is mainly, the first 6 chapters are mainly Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga. Atma Gyan, Karma Yoga. Up to Ashtanga Yoga, the 6th chapter. Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Radha Govinda Jiya. Hey. And the last 6 chapters are about Gyan. First Karma, 6 chapters. Last 6 chapters, Gyan. And what are the middle 6 chapters about? You know, Ananda? Bhakti. They are protected from both sides by 6 chapters, Karma and Karma Yoga. This is not ordinary karma. Just karma is called Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga. And Karma Yoga also has different variations of Karma Yoga as well. But what is given there is Nishkam Karma Yoga. That you are performing your duty and offering the result to Krishna without what? Without your own calm, without your own happiness and material enjoyment connected with that. Just as a duty. Pious activity. It's very punya, very, very pious, and it's purifying to the beginning levels. That's by offering the results of my actions. Right? that will purify the heart and then gradually prepare one for entering into bhakti yoga. But between the karma yoga section and the bhakti yoga section of the 7th chapter through the 12th chapter, that is the bhakti yoga. So before that, the principle of Ashtanga yoga is given by Krishna. So the Ashtanga yoga process, it is described by Krishna to Arjuna, and Arjuna hears the detailed description of how you should go into the forest alone. You should go into the forest, and you should find a very quiet, secluded place next to a stream, river, and there you should now lay kusa grass on the ground, cover it with a deer skin, and then with a soft cloth. Very specifically, Krishna is telling how to do this. Then you must sit very firmly, and he's not telling each detail of yama, niyama, asana, like that, pranayama. He's not telling each detail, but then he says about how to fix one's mind on the supersoul within the heart. Completely undeviating attention. So after he describes this process, which is throughout the ages, Satya Yuga, in Satya Yuga, the people are living very, very long time, and they're practicing this Ashtanga yoga process, which ultimately is bhakti. It's not just yoga, it's bhakti. It is yoga connected with bhakti. And it's also called, what is it called? Pranibhuta? I'm forgetting the term. When bhakti is prominent, connected with karma, bhakti, with jnana, with yoga, then it is a form of bhakti actually, and it will help one to gradually advance. But for those who are not attracted to practicing this very rigorous process like Arjuna, he's living in the Dwapara Yuga. In the Dwapara Yuga, they're living 1,000 years. But Arjuna, although from a great Kshatriya lineage, extremely intelligent, elevated, personal associate of Krishna, he considered that to practice what Krishna just told him is impractical and unendurable. Right? Yeah. And he said, because you're telling me to stop the mind and like this, he said, but to try to do that is like trying to stop the wind from blowing. He gave that example to Krishna. And then Krishna answered Arjuna. He says, yes, it is true. It is very difficult, but it is possible by two things: constant practice and detachment. It can be done. But that was a system for previous Yuga, not for Kali Yuga. But to speak of Kali Yuga, short lives, so many different imperfections in the Kali Yuga. But Arjuna showed that example. And then Arjuna also, he had a doubt there. Just before the beginning of the middle 6 chapters, at the very end of that 6th chapter, then Arjuna has a doubt that he poses to Krishna. Oh Krishna, you're saying that you have to give up all worldliness and you have to go and practice this whole system. So suppose that someone does that and they pursue that for some time, but then due to worldly mindedness, they deviate, they fall down from the path. What becomes of such a person? They gave up their material life and so forth, and their material attachments, and they dedicated themselves to go in the spiritual direction, but they failed. After some time, they failed. So what becomes of such a person, such a soul, who does this? Does he become like a cloud in the sky, riven, cut off from another mass of clouds and just floating on its own in the vast sky? Does he have no position in any sphere? Is that what he becomes like? So then Krishna gives the most amazing, reassuring guarantees to Arjuna. That's one of my favorite parts of the Bhagavad Gita. Because Krishna's in everyone's heart. He knows everything. And Krishna is supremely grateful. Whenever the jiva tries to come toward him, everything is recorded. And for those jivas who try to come on the path of yoga, meaning, what is yoga? The relationship of the eternal jiva with the eternal supreme soul. That's called yoga. It's not just standing on your head and doing exercises and breathing exercises. No, it means your relationship with the supreme. So, he says there to Arjuna, he said, that person who tried to for some time and did not succeed, then he will take his birth in either the family of Suchinam Srimatam Gehe. That means either a wealthy family or a Brahminical family.
Yeah, Brahminical or
yeah, Suchinam Srimatam Gehe. And he will take his birth in one of those families, and he will have automatically the tendencies, an attraction to again start on the pathway of yoga, and he will again revive that consciousness from the previous life and begin to go forward until he attains the perfection, right? Then he also tells to Arjuna, for one who has practiced very long time, then they take a very special birth. He says that they take a birth in the family of very exalted transcendentalists. And from the very beginning of life, they again come onto this pathway and they achieve perfection in that life. He says, verily, such a birth in this world is very rare. So then at the end, he tells to Arjuna that a yogi is greater than, how does he put it? Greater than an ascetic, is greater than a fruitive worker, karmi. So he says, so in all circumstances, Arjuna, you should be a yogi. And then the final verse of that 6th chapter, Yoginam api sarvesham madgatain antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yuktatamo mataha. Mataha means my opinion. Krishna is giving his opinion to Arjuna. And he says, out of all different types of yogis, yoginam api sarvesham, madgata antaratmana, who is intimately united with me within his heart, shraddhavan, with great faith in me, bhajate yomam, he worships me. Same yuktatama mataha. This is the superlative adjectives. Yuktatama. That means he is the most intimately united with me of any other person. And he is the best of all. Greatest of all. So that's how the first 6 chapters bring us to the middle 6 chapters. And the middle 6 chapters are just full of sweet nectar, of relationship with the jiva and the Supreme Soul. There, Krishna is identifying himself very clearly to Arjuna, and to who? To all living jivas, to all jivas. This is an eternal message of the Supreme. We also learn in the 4th chapter that this is not the first time that Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita, because he tells Arjuna that millions of years before, I spoke this to the sun god, Vivasvan. And then Vivasvan spoke it to his son Ikshvaku, then Ikshvaku spoke it to Manu, and in this way it has come down through the chain of what? Parampara.
Saintly kings.
Saintly kings, yes. Rajarshayo Vidu. Idam Rajarshayo Vidu. So it was handed down through the Rajarshis, the saintly kings and dynasties, right? But then Sakale Neha Mahata Yogo Nashta Parantapa. In the course of time, Kala. Because in the material world, Kala affects everything. whatever you try to do, it will be undone.
It destroys everything.
Yeah, it destroys everything. So Krishna says, I spoke that, it was handed down through the disciplic succession, but in course of time, it was lost. Yoga nashta. The system of yoga was lost. So now, today, again, Arjuna, I am again speaking to you that science of the relationship with the Supreme. And I'm speaking this to you, why?
Because you are my friend.
You're my friend and you're my devotee. Bhaktosi me sakha cheti rahasyam hyetad uttamam. Because you are my sakha, you are my friend and you are my devotee, therefore this rahasya, this very confidential knowledge, you will be able to understand it. And that's the message when you read Srila Gurudev's introduction. He stresses this again and again, that no one can understand the Bhagavad Gita. And like Srila Vaman Maharaj in his preface, and then Gurudev, they're explaining how so many different types of misconceptions of the Bhagavad Gita have been there over hundreds and thousands of years, right?
Yeah.
And that there are persons, the person who is just trying, is called a stool darshi, that he's on the external level, like this material body is called shtula sharir, made of the gross material elements. But they only understand it externally. What do you hear in India and in average Hinduism nowadays is that the message of the Bhagavad Gita is what? Do your duty. That's all. It doesn't even say, do your duty for God. It just says, do your duty. Arjuna was told by Krishna to do his duty, to fight on the battlefield. That's their conclusion of these kind of...
haven't gotten the Sarvadharma Pratyaya.
No. But then they misinterpret everything. That actually Krishna is not Krishna.
Well, they're misinterpreting Karma Yoga right away.
Yeah.
What actually is the
Right.
6 chapters.
Yeah. Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, we're talking about Karma Yoga, Nishkama Karma Yoga.
Yeah.
It's in relation to Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing our activities thinking about Krishna.
Right.
Like that, and offering them to Krishna like that, and Nishkama like that.
Yes.
But, go a little further.
Right. Yeah.
And Bhakti Yoga is the center of keeping the Karma Yoga, explaining Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, because we want to know why. There's some selfishness still that you get rid of, in Nishkama Karma. Right. There's something higher to go.
Can you tell about the 4 verses? Anything? Just a little overview.
Yeah, that's in the 10th canto, 10:8, 10:9
chapter.
Yeah, 10th chapter, yeah.
Right.
And it's actually in the Bhakti
It's right in the
Yoga.
very middle. Do you ever notice that?
Yeah.
It's the exact middle of the entire Bhagavad Gita.
700 verses.
And those
yeah.
4 verses are the nutshell of all the other,
Now that's like the
Truths.
350th verse or something?
maybe, something like that.
The nut.
I looked it up
The
one time.
nut, not the shell, the nut, the nougat, the center.
Yeah, of course. Prabhupada used the term because the Srimad Bhagavatam also has Chatur Shlok, 4 different verses. And he called it the whole Srimad Bhagavatam in a nutshell. In other words, it's all in one place like that. And then everything is expanded from there. So in the Gita, there's also the Chatur Shloki Bhagavad Gita. And those 4 verses are the essence of the whole Bhagavad Gita. Everyone has to learn those by memory and study it and try to enter deeply into an understanding. Prabhavo sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samannita
Majjita
magata prana bodhayanta parasparam katayantas chamam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha tesham satata yuktanam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te tesham evanukampartam aham agyana jam tamaha Nashayami Atma Bhavasto Jnana Dipena Bhashvata. And so much special meaning. There's like general meaning, and what Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj tells, that's a very special part of his Bhagavad Gita.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It goes all the way up to the highest.
Here's the mic.
It goes up all the way to the highest of Parakya Bhav.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Can you tell a little of that?
A little bit.
Yeah, just a little. No,
But
just
what's
a
the
little.
gist of those four? You going?
What's the gist of
Aham
those?
Sarvasya Prabhavo. He says this is part of the Aishwarya. We're on Krishna's omnipresent, etc. like that. And then Aishwarya, Aham, the next one, he starts talking about how do we understand the difference in the Aishwarya, Madhurya, like that, by association of devotees that are Tushanti, Charamanti Cha. So Tushanti is saying this has this satisfaction, there's satisfaction. So he says this takes you up to Sakyaras. But Ramanti is Madhurya. But then in the next verse,
Tesham Satadiyuktanam, that verse.
Vajitam Desham Satayuktanam Vajitam Priti Purvakam Dadami Buddhyokam Yena Mam Upayanti.
Remember how Srila Sridhar Maharaj said, I told this, like at the time when he was composing his commentary and everything, and he shared that with our Srila Prabhupada when he was living in Calcutta, in Prabhupada's house at that time. And he shared that, how the internal meaning of that, upayanti, upayanti te, means upapati bhav. Ultimately, it means this, it's connected with the gopis and their intense moods of separation. This is like the inner meaning of that verse. And he said that when he told this and explained this to our Srila Prabhupada, that, actually this upayanti, inner meaning is upapati bhav. And he said it can, our Prabhupada responded by saying, yes, I agree, it cannot but be.
He also pointed out that why upayanti? Because before he's already mentioned it. He mentioned Madhurya Ras.
Right.
So why would he repeat it again?
Yes.
So then he says, therefore, there must be Parakya Bhav.
Right.
Like that.
So Ramanti is not Parakya Bhav, but Upayanti.
It just brings you to the conjugal ras. All the rasas are under the Gita. The Raganuga section is talking about from Sakya and up is Raganuga.
Ramanti, yes.
Then he said divisions of Sakya and Parakya. So even in the Bhagavad Gita, he's pointing out, Krishna's pointing out there's the highest is Parakya. That's why it's the essence of whole Bhagavad Gita.
So just like the general meaning, I'll just go over this and then we can wind this class down. Aham sarvasya prabhavo. What is Krishna saying here? Aham. You know what aham means? It means I. Aham. Aham sarvasya prabhavo. He said, I am the source of everything. Aham sarvasya means everything. Prabhavo, I am the source of everything. Matak, from me. Sarvam pravartate, everything emanates from me. Iti matva, those persons who know this about me, who have understood this about me, iti matva, bhajante mam, they will worship me. How? Buddha bhava samanvita, with ecstatic emotion, bhava samanvita. That one verse is so full of realization. Then he goes further. How will they worship me? What will that pure devotee be like? Much chitta, madgata prana. Much chitta means his heart, his consciousness is completely in me. Much chitta. Madgata prana, his very pran, his very life force is devoted to me, to attaining me. Much chitta, madgata prana, bodhayantak parasparam. Those devotees who are full of this ecstatic love for me, what do they like to do? Bodhayantak parasparam. Parasparam means mutually enlightening one another. They're always speaking about me. They're always expressing. Bodhayantak parasparam katayantas chamam nityam. Nityam means always. Katayantas chamam. They're speaking kata about me. And in doing so, tushyanti cha ramanti cha. They feel so much satisfaction. Tushyanti cha and ramanti cha. So many loving, ecstatic moods. So then, those are the first two verses. If we had Mahabuddhi Prabhu here, Mahabuddhi Prabhu has a special pastime with Srila Prabhupada on the next verse. You heard him tell that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So he puts that at the end of every one of his emails, that verse. And Prabhupada told him, you just meditate on this verse. So there's an external and then there's also a deep internal meaning to it. But the general meaning is, Tesham satata yuktanam. Tesham means unto those persons. Tesham satata yuktana, who are always engaged in what? Bhajatam priti purvakam. In bhajan to me with what? Priti, love. Priti purvakam, loving, ecstatic emotions. Rag. Yes. Priti purvakam. So to them, Krishna is saying, to those persons who are always engaged in this way, who worship me in loving ecstatic emotions, dadami, I give something to them. Dadami means I give. What do I give? Buddhi yogam tam. Buddhi yogam means bhakti yoga. Buddhi yoga means transcendental, pure, spiritual, realized knowledge. Buddhi yogam tam, yena, by which, yena mam upayanti te, by which they can come to me. I educate them fully how they can come to me. So that verse, Prabhupada instructed him, every day you should chant this verse. This was at the time when they were doing the library party in the early to mid 70s. And Srila Prabhupada was inspiring them. Krishna will teach you everything. Simply, you constantly worship Krishna with loving, ecstatic emotion, and Krishna will give you all the intelligence necessary by which you can come to him. That is such an amazing, most of the years, I just had the external understanding. I didn't have this further understanding, but it was always so much of inspiration to me. I know it was to most of the devotees. That verse is like Krishna's promise. If you just try to worship me with loving devotion, I'll give you all the intelligence that you need in order to come to me. I'll inspire you for everything, you see. And then the fourth, last verse, Tesham, again he says, unto them, Eva anukampartam. Anukampa means wanting to bestow compassion and mercy upon my devotees. Tesham eva anukampartam aham agyana jam tamaha. Aham, I am enlightening them who are in agyana and tamaha. That means ignorance and darkness, right? So, aham agyana jam tamaha nashayami. I destroy the darkness and the ignorance in their heart. Nashayami. I destroy that.
Darkness born of ignorance?
Darkness born of ignorance, right? Nashayami atma bhava sto. I who am situated, atma bhava sto means I'm situated in their hearts. And with the shining lamp of knowledge, jnana dipena bhashvata, I destroy this ignorance and darkness within their heart. So reassuring. This is everything. This is the message of the Bhagavad Gita. And that's why Krishna brings Arjuna through the entire 700 verses, which we're going to be chanting from beginning to end tomorrow. All 18 chapters, Sanskrit and English. We're going to hear the entire Bhagavad Gita as Arjuna did. And we will come to the end of the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna's two very important verses are concluding the entire conversation. One of those verses is Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mam Ekam Sharanam Braja. Arjuna, don't worry about all these other dharmas, your Kshatriya dharma, your this dharma, that dharma, family dharma, society dharma. No. Give them all up. Sarva Dharman Parityajya. What dharma? Mam Ekam Sharanam. Just surrender to me alone. Ekam means alone, just to me. No one else, no demigod, no other personality, no incarnation even. Krishna's saying, to me. Mam ekam sharanam braja. And then aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshishyami. I will completely destroy all the sinful reactions. I will completely protect you, he says. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo moksha ishyami. I liberate you from having to suffer any kind of reaction, because Arjuna was very concerned to kill his relatives. This is going to be sinful. There's going to be so many bad reactions. Don't worry. Krishna says, I will protect you. You just surrender to me alone. I'll fully protect you. And masuchaha. Masuchaha means don't worry. Don't fear anything. He's completely reassuring by that promise. And then comes the best verse in the whole Bhagavad Gita that Gurudev told.
One thing, Mami comes Raja.
Yeah. Yes. Well, that's the inner. All of these verses have the inner and the outer. That's the benefit of Srila Gurudev's Bhagavad Gita, because Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, his commentary. So it's very unique in that regard. Whereas Prabhupada's commentary was from Baladev Vijayabhushan. It was based on that. For introducing the whole conceptions, all the Siddhanta, everything, to the whole world. So Prabhupada focused in that way. And then Gurudev brought out his, which is such a perfect, it's like the perfect sequel to Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. So relishable. And then the inner and very more secret and more rasa-filled conceptions are given by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So what's the best verse? Gurudev told, there's one verse that is the best verse in the whole Bhagavad Gita. And guess what? It's not said only once by Krishna. It's said twice. Right?
Yeah.
The first two lines are the same. Twice. In the middle of the Gita, around the 9th chapter, and then at the end of the Gita, the 18th chapter. And what is that verse? Krishna is giving 4 instructions to follow by everyone. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. What are those 4? Always think of me. Always think of me. Manmana. Become my bhakta. Manmana bhava madbhakto. Become my bhakta. Madhyaji. Worship me. Mam namaskuru. Offer your namaskar, your obeisances to me. Then he says, Mam namaskuru, mam e vaishyasi, satyam te. You will come to me. I promise you this. Satyam. Satyam te means Krishna is putting his hand on his chest, on his heart. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says. And he's promising this to Arjuna. I will not lie to you. Satyam te pratijane priyosime. Because you're very dear to me. I'll not cheat you. I'm telling you the truth. If you do these 4 things, you will come to me. I'm guaranteeing you this. Satyam te. And then after that, our Krishna was ready. He asked Arjuna, have you understood everything? Have you understood? And because why? Because he was actually ready to repeat the entire Bhagavad Gita again, right there on the spot to Arjuna, if he had not understood everything. But Arjuna said, yes, I've understood everything. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna proved to the whole world that he is that supreme being, because he revealed the universal form, and no one else can do that. No one else can do that in the entire universe. That Virata Rupa, the universal form, Krishna proved in the Gita. So, how we came in touch with this in our life, it's inconceivable. How somehow or other we wandered into this knowledge, this Guru Parampara, this topmost of all transcendental truth, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and the whole Guru Parampara, and all these literatures from them. We are so rich and wealthy. We are completely the most wealthy people in the whole world. Because this is the ultimate wealth. So, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Any last thing you want to say?
It's causeless mercy.
Can take the mic.
Yeah. It's causeless mercy. One time Gurudev was on a walk here, and Sajjan Maharaj says the first time he actually came to meet Gurudev, he says, why have you come here? And he was trying to explain, oh, I've come because this and that. And no, because I have brought you here.
Oh, he said, how have you come here? I remember he told that story.
Yeah.
And then Sajjan Maharaj was thinking, well, I came up this Dry Creek Road and like this. And then he said,
because I have
yes,
brought you
I
here.
have brought you.
Yes. So the mercy of Prabhupada is causeless.
Yeah.
Guru, bona fide Guru. Brahmandi Brahmadi Kono Bhagavanji.
Yeah. Guru Krishna Prasadi Pai Bhakti Lata Beach.
Very nice.
Gaur Hari
So
Bol.
just by lying on the grass looking at the stars, you came without.
I became what?
You got all that.
Well, Krishna answered. He definitely answered. And all of us have our own story.
That's great.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna,
Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Sri Gita Jayanti ki jai, Sri Bhagavan Sri Krishna Chandra ki jai, Arjuna ki jai, Mahabharat battlefield ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande. I have to stop it. Finish.